There is an argument some dishonesty has been applied by your side of politics in this campaign. You're saying continually, for example, the nuclear reactors will cost $600 billion and this will be recouped by cuts. The opposition's modelling puts the cost at $120 billion, and won't the cost of the plants get recouped the same way a renewables bill is recouped through power bills?
Well, the independent science agency of this country, the CSIRO, as well as the Australian energy market operator that runs the energy grid, have both said that the cheapest way for Australia to meet its power needs in the future is through renewables. We haven't engaged some consultant to give us the advice that we were seeking. This is the independent agencies of science agencies.
What's 600 billion based on?
This country have said that.
What's 600 billion based on?
So that's come from the Smart Energy Council, who are experts in this field and have calculated the total cost at $600 billion.
It hasn't come from the CSIRO. It hasn't come from an official body. It's come from a lobby group.
Well, what I was about to say, Andrew, was that the lower figure the coalition gives assumes that the energy use in this country will decrease in the coming years. They're saying that the economy needs to contract. They're saying that aluminium smelters that provide enormous numbers of jobs in regional areas need to close or reduce their operations. So if we want to have a future with a smaller economy, with smaller energy use, then the coalition's got a plan for you. It's called nuclear. But what I think Australians want to see is be able to use more energy to create new industries and keep those jobs in heavy industry. And the cheapest way to do that is through renewable power. The problem for Peter Dutton is that everyone can see through his nuclear plan. It's why it's locked up in a policy cupboard along with every other policy commitment he's made. I mean, this is the extraordinary thing in this election campaign, Andrew, is that each signature policy of Peter Dutton, the coalition, is now locked away in a policy cupboard. I've heard of a cupboard being bare. His is overflowing with policies that he no longer wants to talk about. His nuclear plan, his work from home ban, his job cuts to public servants, and his taxpayer-funded long lunches.
You're in full flight now. I might pull you up, Murray Watt. I might pull you up. Let's talk about Medicare or Mediscare. The coalition says they'll match your funding on bulk billing, that you've essentially allowed the system to run down from where they had it, and they're just correcting things. You're just correcting things. What do you say to that?
Well, the record shows, Andrew, that Peter Dutton was voted the worst health minister in Australia's history by the nation's doctors. And that was because he tried to put a $7 tax on GP visits. It's because he tried to rip $50 billion worth of Commonwealth spending out of our public hospitals.
What were the bulk billing rates under him? What were the bulk billing rates under him? The only way he was able to get bulk billing rates that served his needs and the coalition's needs was to whack in all the COVID vaccinations that we were all getting every few months. If you actually strip that back and look at like for like, that was after he was health minister.
Crashed under the coalition. But he keeps pointing to those figures himself as some sort of proof of what a great job he did. The reality is, if you compare like for like, bulk billing crashed under the coalition and it's only returned under the Albanese Labor government. We want to get it higher. It's still not where we want it to be. And that's why we are opening these Medicare urgent care clinics that Peter Dutton wants to close. It's why we are providing the bulk billing incentives that he's going to have to cut in order to pay for his nuclear reactors.
Let me ask about these ads saying the coalition will shut all urgent care clinics if they're elected. That's a lie, isn't it? That's not true.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. If you go back to look at what Peter Dutton had to say about our Medicare urgent care clinics, he said that he'd keep a couple of them. And the point is, Andrew, he has to find the money somewhere. He has to find the money to pay for his $600 billion in nuclear reactors. He's got no choice but to cut Medicare and to cut these urgent care clinics, to cut the incentives to GPs.
So he's not saying, okay, hang on. He's not saying he's going to do that, but you're saying he's going to do that. That is not really true. But Murray Watt, that is not truth in advertising, is it? It's just not.
But Andrew, how else can he pay for his $600 billion in nuclear reactors? Maybe he's going to cut schools as well. Maybe he's going to cut the NDIS. He still hasn't come clean with the Australian people about how he's going to pay for these nuclear reactors. And he's got no choice, if he wants them, than to cut Medicare, to cut schools, to cut the NDIS, and to cut all those jobs out of the public sector that he's been talking about doing. This guy's got more cuts in store than Freddy Krueger. He's going to cut everything. He's got no plan for anything except cutting wages, cutting jobs, cutting services, and when Peter Dutton cuts, Australians pay.
All right, last Sunday you announced this instant tax deduction of $1,000. Is the word instant in it ironic, given people can't get it until after July 2027?
Well, I think the point that's being made is that once it comes into place, it will be instant for people. My understanding is that the advice from the ATO and Treasury was that it would take a little bit of time to put this system in place, which is why that's the starting date. But this will be a massive step forward for millions of Australian taxpayers who currently have to wade through shoeboxes of receipts. And again, Andrew, what it highlights is a big difference between the two parties. We're offering permanent tax cuts for every Australian taxpayer. Peter Dutton is going to an election wanting to increase taxes. He said he's going to repeal the tax cuts that we're providing to Australians. I can't remember a Labor leader going to an election wanting to increase income tax rates, let alone a Liberal leader, but that's what we've got from Peter Dutton. So as I say, his plan is to cut everything, jobs, wages, services. He will cut everything except your taxes, which will go up under Peter Dutton.
All right, on this issue of this request from the Russians to the Indonesian authorities for the airbase, what's your latest information on this, and why won't you brief the opposition on it? I know it technically doesn't meet the Caretaker Convention requirements, but wouldn't it be an act of good faith to just give them a briefing on it?
Well, Andrew, the opposition is asking for a briefing on something that doesn't exist. I mean, they might as well ask for a briefing on the Loch Ness Monster. This is something that doesn't exist, that they fabricated. Peter Dutton ran his mouth off and started verbaling and accusing the Indonesian president of making statements that he did not make.
But you don't think there was a request?
Has problems with the truth in other respects.
Are you saying there wasn't a request?
All of this is already on the record and has been answered by the Prime Minister and the Defence Minister. There is no proposal from Russia to have a base anywhere in Indonesia in the way that Peter Dutton and his colleagues have been claiming over the last couple of weeks. I mean, your next guest, Bridget McKenzie, took it one step further and made the accusation that China and Russia want to see the Labor government restored, and of course had to embarrassingly walk that back when that was also shown to be a lie. I mean, until this week, I didn't think it was possible for the Coalition's campaign to become even more shambolic than the work from home back down, which apparently is now back on the agenda. But now this week we've seen that the prospective Australian Prime Minister have to apologise for fabricating a claim made by the Indonesian president, and then your next guest having to walk back and apologise for lying about claims about China and Russia. These people are a shambles and they're not ready to government.
I will ask her about that. I just wanted to ask you about James Patterson. You would have heard the story at the top of the show. Do you believe Ben Britton was offering him voluntary advice? Do you have any concerns Labor could lose this seat to Ben Britton?
Well, I was unaware of this until you aired those emails this morning, Andrew, but clearly James Patterson has got some explaining to do. Those emails do strongly suggest that Mr Britton was operating in a voluntary advisor capacity, which James Patterson denied on your program last week. So I think there are some things that James Patterson has to explain. And again, this comes after a week where it's not the first time that we've seen an opposition figure have to apologise for lying and making things up. Bridget McKenzie's had to do it, Peter Dutton's had to do it. And again, it just demonstrates these people are just not ready to govern.
Just finally, how do you feel with 2 weeks to go? Are you confident you can win majority government or concerned about minority?
We're not taking anything for granted, Andrew. In all the marginal seats around the country, things are still very close. And that's obviously where this election will be decided, as all elections are. So, we've always said that we're aiming for majority government. We're encouraging as many Australians as possible to put a 1 next to their Labor candidate, wherever they may live. Majority government would be much more stable for the country, especially given the global uncertainty that we see at the moment. But as I say, we're not taking anything for granted, and we're going to campaign the House down until 6 p.m. on the 3rd of May.
Murray Watt, thanks for your time.
Thanks, Andrew.